Hello, welcome to the KendoReact R1 2022 release stream. We've got some really cool stuff lined up. Yes, thank you. Interrupt with a woo. It's worth it. We have got some seriously cool stuff today to show to you. I am Kathryn, Grayson, Nanz. I am the developer advocate for KendoReact, and this is Carl. Other hand.
Yeah, right. This is tricky. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Carl Bergenhem, and I'm the product manager for all of Kendo UI, actually, but I'm here, of course, to chat about React today.
Yeah, I mean, the other ones are okay, I guess. But...
I love all my children equally. I have no favorites.
No, that's fair. I'm obligated to have a favorite.
Yes. Yeah.
It's KendoReact. So let's go ahead and jump right in. First, we're going to talk about a couple things that are not specifically new components in the release. Then we'll jump into new components and then updated components. So starting us off at the top, for those of you who use KendoReact as the basis for your design system, we have got some great news. We are starting a new project to improve the default, Bootstrap, and material themes and simplify the act of customizing your React components. So this is a project that we've started based on your feedback. So if there's anything that you think we need to know or we should know about the experience of using our themes, of customizing components, then now's the time. Carl, is there anything specific that you want to add, you want to call out, or hype up?
Yeah, I'm just going to say that, what essentially the changes that we're doing, not just to the components that we have with the R1 release, but actually what we're doing throughout the year as well, comes from feedback from folks that are using our components. So hopefully a lot of people, they're on the stream today. And we'd love to hear what you think. We know that there might be some breaking changes for folks that are included here, but it's a little bit of a growing pain to end up in I think a better spot for our themes and allow really are the out of the box themes that we have to be way more flexible and to give you the power to ensure that if your designer or design team has a very intricate design system, or really maybe not even intricate, just a lot of rounded corners or whatever it might be, right? There's some things that might not be seen as intricate that actually can be pretty difficult to implement. So having these options available hopefully can help make the process a little bit easier for everybody.
Yeah. And I will say, I was warned similarly about the breaking changes, and it had me a little bit nervous because for those of you that have seen my KendoReact demo app, and if you haven't, you'll see it soon, it's very heavily themed. It is probably, I would say, unrecognizably themed from the Kendo default.
Yeah, it's impressive. I have to say, I think I said this the last time I was on your stream, but I'm still blown away by the customizations that you did.
But that being said, I experienced very few breaking changes when I did the update. I saw only a couple really small ones that I was able to quickly go in and fix with just a couple lines of CSS. So there will be some breakage. It's definitely worth running some regression testing and making sure, clicking around, making sure everything looks right. But rumors of our demise were greatly exaggerated. It all turned out just fine.
Yeah, and by the way, also a lot of these options that we'll be talking about, they are also optional. So optional options. So you don't necessarily need to use them, which is great as well, since, that just means maybe there's a couple of modifications that you need to do in order to get some same defaults. And then after that, you barely even need to touch them. So if in some of my projects, when I updated to the latest edition, nothing changed. And since I'm not using the options, it's smooth sailing. So it depends a little bit on what you've done previously. But that's the good news as well, is that nothing is required necessarily.
Yep. And specifically, this update to the themes has to do with the buttons, the inputs, the date inputs, and the drop-down libraries. So you can target your testing and the things you're keeping an eye on to just those right now. But they do add new rendering options. So you're going to get on all of those, your buttons, inputs, date inputs, drop-down libraries, theme color, fill mode, size, shape, and rounded rendering options that will make it easier for you to go in and customize those elements. So again, overall, definitely a win. Definitely going to make things better in the long run. If you're using an existing theme, just do a little extra testing. It's a good excuse to go back and do a little extra testing.
Yeah, I'll admit, not all my products had testing, so that was my visual regression testing was me saying, "Oh, that looks the same."
That's a huge chunk of what happened in the demo app. Yeah, something I can get away with because there's no actual users besides you guys going in and stealing the code, maybe. But yeah, all right. Hey, folks in the chat, starting to show up, starting to get excited. We've been talking about the update to the themes, and similarly, we're going to move smoothly from that into the Figma kits. Let me go ahead and share my screen so that we can take a look. All right. This is the KendoReact demo app for those of you that have not seen it before. And in case you can't tell, I am a super huge Star Trek mega fan. So my Kendo demo app is LKARS with a K instead of a C, KendoReact, of course. And it's modeled after the UI that they use on Star Trek ships. So that being said, there's a lot of theming. There was a lot of changes that had to go into this, and using the Figma kits made that approximately 20,000 times easier. For those of you that are unfamiliar with our Figma kits, they're a really incredible offering that breaks down pretty much all of our components at this point. I think there's one component that we don't have, the charts component, I don't think is in here yet. Otherwise, for KendoReact, literally everything else in the Figma kits. So if you work with designers or if you're familiar with Figma at all, honestly, it's not super hard to get in and customize things, make things look exactly how you want. The best approach, you're going to want to come in, the Figma kits break everything down into Figma components, which you can then edit the base components there and see that versioned out across the entirety of your components once they're all put together. So yeah, you can see here, I've changed. I am one of those people that has aggressively rounded every corner to make things look like the LKARS system.
Aggressively rounded. I thought they might be even rounder, but I see the since the pill shape, right? Technically, it's those corners on either side. Yeah.
So, but this, especially when used in combination with our Unite UX plugin, you can move everything from here super smoothly into Unite UX. Oh, yes, we can bump up the screen a little bit, although these are just tiny. We're looking now at some of the components. This is the kind of combination button bar component. I don't remember what it's actually called. Carl probably does.
Oh yeah, we have a lot of different buttons that you can use. Yeah, so the button group is one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I love this. Can we bump up the screen? And by we, I mean you.
No. Everybody that's streaming in, zoom in.
Yeah, everyone zoom in a little bit, whatever you're doing.
Yeah. I am impressed, by the way. I actually didn't know that you had also customized the Figma kits in order to be able to represent everything in LKARS. That's really cool to see here in action.
Yeah, it made it super easy, especially, honestly, the colors. So one of the things that was really nice, and let me see if I can get to the point where I can show it, all the design tokens. Ooh. Let's see if I can remember. There they are. Over here on the right-hand side, which I promise I would zoom in on if I could, but I don't think there's a way for me to zoom in on the toolbars. But I was able to go in and edit all of my colors along the side so that somewhere in here. You can see here. And over here, my links and my buttons, my primary colors, and using that and then exporting through Unite UX, all of that went very smoothly over here into my SAS file where I've got all of these defined as variables that I can use over and over. And it was a piece of cake, 1,000 times easier than had I had to do all of this by hand, which honestly sounds so exhausting that I don't want to think about it any longer.
But it is cool to see just how easy, just having the SAS variables, essentially this extra file, and that's all you really need to do in order to be able to take something like our components and then make something that looks really like that Star Trek interface. It's really neat to see.
Yeah, it was way easier than I was expecting, which sounds really mean because it sounds like I was told it would be that easy, and you kind of go like, yeah, okay, sure, like that sounds nice for you, but then to use it and actually have it be that way, it's been a minute since I exported, so I'm trying to remember. Yeah, so you'll go in, you'll install the Unite UX plugin, do this export and handoff, and it will walk you through. Where you logged in, and if you remember your password.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is I fat finger things all the time, especially when I'm doing it in front of an audience. So this is I'm almost more impressed that you're able to do this live than anything else.
It took a couple tries, but we got there. Password managers are for the weak. But yeah, you'll click the handoff button and it will export everything, icons included, all of your components, the entirety. And you can see, including these colors and stuff that are what gets exported. Create a project. Ended up being a little bit of a Unite UX walkthrough, but it's really all tied together, honestly, at least in my mind. The Figma kits are useful on their own, especially if you are a team that has designers that are looking to create their own design system or design language. They can absolutely be used on their own, but to really get the full experience, I would say combination with Unite UX makes it just smooth as silk. So.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that, once you've been handed something in a Figma file, or I guess Photoshop for folks that are using that, right? And you're trying to match something that's pixel perfect. It's can be difficult, right? Transferring something over from something like Figma or Photoshop or whatever it might be, an image or even a hand drawn picture, right? It's tough to take that and then say, all right, so I have all the HTML and CSS in the world at my fingertips. How do I make that happen? And how do I make these changes, be reflected in my components? So just having the Figma kits and knowing what properties are available, even if you were just looking at the right-hand side of the Figma panel, you can at least start somewhere, which I think having at least something, so you're not just with a blank piece of paper and trying to trace it is great. But then having this as something that can help you take something like our components, which some of them are pretty, complex, right? In terms of structure, like the grid scheduler, those kind of components. So it's nice to be able to just have that ready to export and a few clicks, and then waiting for the demo gods to have the bar fill completely, and then you're off to the races.
Yeah, I will say the other thing that I think is fantastic about the Figma kits is something that it's little, but it's super nice. And it's that everything is named exactly the same, right? Like it's one of those things you don't really appreciate until you've had it. And then you're like, oh, I called something because the names are all right there, named exactly the same in the colors here in Figma as they are in the SAS variables that line up with the components and how they're built. There's no situation where you've called something differently or named something slightly, it's primary color instead of like first color or something or whatever. There are plenty of times where that has been its own nightmare.
That's actually one of the first projects I worked on. I was using naming conventions associated with the components that I was using, and the design that I was given, and even some of the CSS that I was given had completely different names. So part of what I had to spend time doing anytime I was handed a design was understand, wait, what are we talking about here? So, I would say that honestly, days were spent going back and forth and just being like, all right, so now what's this name tied to? And how do I translate? These are the things that I have available to me. Which one, do you mean? And as somebody that isn't that great at design, sometimes it's a little bit intimidating to try to understand all the terminology. So even just having the same naming convention like this is a huge time saver, and also it resolves a lot of headaches immediately.
I say, right, those are the two hardest things in programming: naming things, cache invalidation, and off by one errors. Anyway, the update with the Figma kits in this release, we are on version 1.7, and that now we added a few more components, again, bringing us up to, I think it's like in the 90-something% coverage.
Really, the only thing that's missing right now are the charts, just because they're a little bit more intricate, and they're SVG or canvas, depending on which way of rendering that you prefer. It's just a quick configuration, but by nature that makes it a little bit more difficult to tackle in Figma, from my understanding as a non-Figma expert. But they are on the way. We're actively working on that to make that be added into the Figma kit. So in the next couple of months, we'll have 100% coverage. So, but if you're using all the other components outside of the data visualization are in there, and luckily for a lot of the charts, you're just picking the colors of the series to match your other colors, and they can be transferred over pretty easily as is. But of course, we want to be complete. We want to be able to say that we have 100% coverage. So, but it will be there soon.
That's awesome. So yeah, over here, I have brought everything over from Figma into Unite UX. You can see here's the canvas that has the files that we exported. Over here, these are our actual KendoReact components coded with the styles applied that we've exported, so that you can check and see, does the exported code match up exactly with the Figma designs in the way that you would expect? Just a little double check and adjustment. You want to make sure, right, that everything lines up. And when you're done, you can export. It will not only give you the code that you need, but also storybook documentation if you're using that, which is crazy useful. I'm a huge storybook fan. And so the ability to add directly into that is fantastic. Let's see, I'll do a quick zoom in. I'm getting
You're getting all the hints. Yeah.
I'm getting all the hints, which is actually kind of okay in this case.
I would need the hints. I'm trying to read all of them real quick, but of course you've been using this for a while.
A little bit. But yeah, basically we'll break down design on the left, component on the right, and allow you to take a look at each, compare exactly, make adjustments as needed. So you can come in. Okay, got it. I signed in with a different email than I normally do.
Yeah.
So I got all of that. Right. Allows you to pull from all of the tokens that were defined in Figma. Once you have checked all of them, there's a live preview down here that I think I'm zoomed in too far. Yep.
I got that nice little slider.
Yeah, when you've got the components selected properly, it will do an exact slide. I've got something not quite right. Oh, well. Sorry, gang. There is a way, and I'm sure someone's watching, cringing.
Yeah, that knows.
They know. Someone's upset. Normally, when I have them selected properly, I bet it's because I'm in calendar over here and not date input. When I have them selected properly, it will allow you to move that slider back and forth and show you an exact overlay between your design and your coded component, and it's really slick. When
Yeah, it
you
makes
check
me
all
think
of
of like the when you see behind the scenes for like Disney movies back when they animated them all by hand, and you see that person
Yep.
kind of drawing something and flipping through pages real quick and then flipping back and forth.
It's
That's what
very
I'm
that.
imagining. This is the developer equivalent of that, of taking the design, seeing what the actual component looks like, and then trying to make sure that they
The
match
quick
up.
flip.
Yeah.
Yep. No, that's exactly it. When you export, you get your documentation over here, but then your SAS files and everything over here, including this tokens file, which again gives you everything that was defined in the Figma file without you having to do all of that, because there is no native export for design tokens in Figma.
Oh, interesting.
So all of this here is a huge, huge benefit. So, but I promised we'd get into components, actual KendoReact components. Thank you for letting me take a little side detour down Figma kits and Unite UX. They are incredibly exciting. If you haven't used them before, definitely check them out. But I know you guys are hyped about the new components that are part of our R122 release.
Yeah, we are.
So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. The first one actually is here on the homepage. We've added a ScrollView component. Some of you might be more familiar with it as a carousel. It's a popular request from clients, certainly one that I've gotten a bunch as a designer and developer. So to support that, we've added our own ScrollView component to the library. It will support both automatic and manual scrolling through a collection of images. I think as many images as you like, right?
Oh yeah, as many as you want to stuff in there, yeah.
So we can take a look over here in the code. I've gone ahead, imported it here, ScrollView, and then you'll define here your object with all of the images, their titles, and then in my case, I've gone ahead and defined separates because they're all a little bit different sized, I found. You can skip that step if you've got a bunch of images that you've already cropped and positioned to be exactly the same size. But I was incredibly lazy and decided I'd rather just define the width and height manually in each one. So I defined here their position in the rotation, the URL, which I did not bother to host myself, and
Ooh, yeah.
style. Just stealing images, it's fine. I'm borrowing them.
And that's really what it is. Yeah, you're not claiming any copyright and that they're yours. You're just showing them. Yeah.
I just want to show them. And then down here, we've got the ScrollView component. As you can see, not super long, pretty easy to implement. Set the width, height of the container and the background color. In my case, I wanted this to be endless. I wanted it to scroll forever until somebody moves off the page. I also turned off my arrows and pageability just because I wanted that super clean look on the home page. But
yeah, and for those that aren't familiar, the pageability is those like three dots. You can see at the bottom of a lot of these, so you kind of know, oh, there's like 3 or 4 items. But it does make it a lot cleaner when you don't have that up and you're doing endless scrolling for sure.
Yeah, it really depends on how you're using it. In something like a photo gallery in a portfolio, you would definitely want the pageability, and you'd want for people to be able to move through on their own. You can see I've turned that back on. Now we have the arrows and the dots at the bottom. There's a little bit of overlay here because I set a really close cropped container because I didn't have them turned on. But it makes it super easy for folks to page through whatever you've got, and it's just as easy as swapping these between true and false. Got some folks in the chat. Hi, welcome. I'm glad that you guys are here. And as a Starfleet member and a huge Trek fan, I love this. You're a Starfleet member? Was that an option? I mean, I gotta tell you, I really enjoyed my time here at Progress, but if Starfleet is an option.
Oh, yeah. that could be tough to compete with, I think, for a lot of companies.
But I'm glad you like it. It's been a lot of fun to work with. And it's just something I enjoy. Oh, Starfleet International Fan Group.
Ooh.
I genuinely need to get in on that.
Yeah.
That sounds cool. But yeah, I'm a big fan of making something that's enjoyable. I am one of those people that does not do well with the like tutorial hell, you know? You ever got in that loop where you're just like building things for the sake of building them? That's not as fun as building something with a fun purpose, like pretending you work on a starship. So
now I'm just imagining that you're going to take this and like, add it to a smart fridge and have that be the interface. That'd be kind of neat.
I have seen people that have done that with like Teslas because you can customize
can
like,
you really?
screen.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, or maybe I don't know if it's Tesla specifically, but there are like smart cars, like electric cars that have the panel, the screen.
I'm going to be researching this after the stream. That might be how I pick an electric vehicle, if I can customize the user experience. Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that probably voids your warranty, but it might be worth it.
Yes, 100% worth it. Yeah.
You just jailbreak your car.
Yeah.
That's fine.
It's very similar to right to repair, if you ask me.
Genuinely, I agree. I'm afraid that will really take us on a tangent, but yes.
Yes, yeah. Maybe we should check ourselves before we spend the rest of the stream talking about that. Yeah,
talking about right to repair. Yes.
Yep.
I'll have you back on later. You can come back on my stream when we're not doing release stuff.
Yes.
But since we are, what a smooth transition, right?
Super smooth.
Thank you. Let's take a look at the drag and drop component. So in this release, we have added, it's actually a collection of components and hooks that are there to support adding drag and drop ability to your application. So those are the drag and drop, draggable, and droppable components, which, do what they say on the tin. And then also use draggable and use droppable hooks if you're one of those people that enjoys hooks. I am. But they make setting up drag and drop implementation a total breeze. So if that's something of interest to you, you'll definitely want to check it out. I have added it here to just quickly, reprioritize your power flow between your sub interlinks. So no big deal. But
no checks and balances on that.
Oh yeah, no, you can just go for it. That's how it goes, right? They go, quick, I need you to reroute power from the shields. And you're always like, is that smart? I don't know if that's smart.
Yeah, right. And should that just be something that somebody can just go, woo, and then that redirects it? Yeah.
Yeah. But in that spirit, I've decided, why not just drag and drop? You should totally be able to just move the power around in the whole starship. But to do that, where is my... I created a drag and drop component here. This defines these 4 droppable boxes using the droppable box. I've broken those out into kind of subcomponents. So we have the draggable button and the droppable box, which make use of the use droppable hook, and define that div where you'll be able to drop things, the target, I believe. That's what you would call that. If you were a professional who knew what they were talking about. Meanwhile, your button kind of defines this basic button allowing you to use draggable, kind of toggling like on press and on start, so that when you click it up, you see that toggle. Drag me, drop me. It's very Alice in Wonderland. Drink me, drag me.
Oh yeah, me. Right. And what's nice too is that you're dragging the actual element. There's ways, of course, I've seen some folks do the like a copy of it essentially, if you're depending on what kind of a dragging and dropping that you do. But what I think is nice about this, or these components, I should say, since it's a larger package, is that the goal here is to try to make it as flexible as possible. So you just have the ability to make something draggable and then make an element on your page droppable, so that whatever you're dragging can end up being dropped in there. It's kind of fun to say droppable box, and it's something that's draggable and droppable. But the idea of these is it's a little bit more of a utility thing, but we take advantage of it a little bit within our component, since it's a new component, and we're going to continue to find other areas where we can integrate this into our own library. But we of course want to also offer that to everybody that's using KendoReact.
Yeah, and I was also, again, kind of very pleasantly surprised how easy it was to kind of set up and how intuitive this kind of looks, honestly. Because I've worked with kind of drag and drop utilities and libraries before, and it can be a little tricky to try and figure out what exactly is doing what and what is draggable and what isn't. And setting that target, this especially felt very intuitive to just kind of look at and be like, I've got draggable boxes, and they're all telling me either the title or the button, and it seemed to translate really well to the actual UI. And I think there's a lot to be said for that ability to kind of quickly skim through code and see what's going on. The components were great, easy. Boy, do I have a good recommendation for a charting library. Might I recommend to you KendoReact. We do actually have a great number of data visualizations, some of which I have implemented here. We've got the heat map is over here, and then this kind of gauge, I believe is what we've called it.
Yeah, we have a couple different gauges. So we have the arc gauge, the radial gauge, the circular gauge. We're probably looking at the arc gauge there.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Charts.
But yeah, for charts, we have a lot of different chart types.
We have
definitely
got some really great or really powerful charting abilities. So I've just pulled up the docs over here, just because I don't have all of the charts integrated yet.
We'll make it happen.
We will definitely get there. But yeah, if there's any kind of specific chart that you are looking for, Des, and would like me to try and find in the doc so that we can take a look at and drop it in the comments, we can totally do that. Otherwise, yeah, rerouting the power without thinking sounds like something a lower decks engine would do. I am loving lower decks. Again, I know that's not really what we're here to talk about.
Yeah,
but
I could spend the hour talking about it, honestly. It's a great show. If anything, I'm sad it's just 2 seasons. They should be pumping out episodes every week, for X number of years, if you ask me. All this waiting for seasons.
And we've got another season of Lower Decks coming. So
yeah. You can tell that people that grew up watching Star Trek, or potentially even people, involved in the original shows, are a part of the creative team there, because they do some deep pulls that have me laughing out loud. And I'm not as big of a Trekkie as other people are, and I catch them and start laughing. My wife is very much into it, and there are some things that she's like, all right, pause. The reason this is funny is, and some deep cuts.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, the lead writer, Mike McMahon, ran a Twitter account for a while that was like TNG season 8, where they
fun.
They would post like just it's like those fake Seinfeld episodes people will post on.
Love that.
Same idea. Where's the eject warp core button? Very valid point. Need to hop on that.
Yeah, which KendoReact component can represent that beside the button? Maybe there's a fun thing you can do to eject it.
Yeah, there's got to be something, because there needs to be some kind of a follow-up check, right? Because you don't want to just hit the button and then they're just like, yeah, sure, whatever, we ejected it.
Yeah,
there need to be some kind of validation code, Picard Alpha, blah blah blah, right?
Yeah,
so something maybe like a pop-up modal. I'll think about it.
Yeah, that has me thinking, and maybe somebody knows that this is the plot line of an episode, but babies and like small toddlers order tons of stuff off of their parents' phones and tablets on accident. Is there a Star Trek episode where somebody accidentally ejects the warp core because there's just like one button and there's no confirmation, like we're talking about with the shields? Is that the plot line? Did they ever predict that?
I don't know about that. There are episodes where we see children interacting with the computers because at least on the Enterprise, there is like daycare and schooling. There's an episode, this is obvious, now I've really gone like deep cut. There's an episode where a bunch of the main characters get like regressed basically back to children.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
Are stuck as children. And there's like Picard is trying to use the computer in like the nursery. And there's all kinds of restrictions about the information that it will give him and not. He's like, he didn't have authorization or clearance for the like elementary school computers. So there's at least, we know some level of protection against just like toddlers slamming on the touch screen and like firing like photon torpedoes.
Yeah, but that could be bad.
Yeah, otherwise there's definitely like verbal authorization codes that we see for like self-destruct and stuff.
Yeah, for some of the bigger ones. Yeah.
It does feel like there's a lot of damage that could be done just with like average stuff that nobody seems to need to input a secondary code on.
Yeah, I would probably lean against the screen and accidentally do something bad, honestly. I oftentimes don't know where my limbs are and like hit my knee or my hand on door frames. So I probably very often, maybe eject the warp core because I'm just flailing my arms around. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we never see like the equivalent of a like like the butt dial. They never accidentally get the Ferengis on view screen and are like, oh God, I'm sorry.
Well, maybe we're giving some ideas now to the Lower Decks crew. Yeah.
Lower Decks guys.
Yeah, hit us up. We have a lot of good ideas.
Yeah, ejecting the warp core is just standard procedure. There's no two-factor authentication required.
Checks out.
You hit that button, you get what you get.
You deserve it.
You brought that on yourself. Oh man.
The Star Trek version of you're just holding the phone wrong.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm trying to think of what the like PEBCAC, the like problem between computer and chair, or would be keyboard and chair. Yeah. Problem between view screen and captain's chair.
There we go.
So, bumping along. We have a new section in LKARS, the operations console. It's currently a little, it's a work in progress. But speaking of view screens, the ability to take a look at what's in front of you and get your current heading, your speed, your shields, closest M-class planet, of course, in case of emergency landing. All of that using our fancy new Popover component. So this is the Popover here. It allows you, it's kind of a like super powerful tooltip is maybe the way that I would put it. It's like a tooltip cranked up to 11.
I think a very common interaction with popovers that I think a lot of people see is in any calendar app. So like Google Calendar or Outlook, if you click on a meeting, generally, a big pop over or a big tooltip, however you want to define it, right, appears that has whoever's in it, like meeting notes, links, etc., like information about the meeting. And in Outlook especially, that can take up your entire Outlook window more or less in terms of height. And that's really what the popover is there for. When a tooltip, which usually is used for maybe some text, maybe some custom HTML in there, but nothing too crazy. That's where, if you need to add something like this, or maybe even a more advanced layout, that's where the popover reigns supreme.
Yeah, especially if you need to like nest other components inside. Like in this one, we've got our button there. I don't think we really need another button to close it, but we've got one. But the ability for like, headers, fully styled text, images, other components, whatever you need. This is a relatively small one as far as popovers go, probably for actual implementation. But our pop-up and our tooltip components are still there for all your smaller pop-up needs. But this one's there for when you have more complex things that need to be shown in this kind of, can I come up with a better word than popover? Good job with the naming.
Yeah, right. In this case, I feel the naming makes sense. That was an easy one. Yeah.
It really does. It's also pretty dang customizable. So I've got it here. I've included both the popover and the actions bar, which is this little section at the bottom where I've put the button in my example. And then here's our popover. We can toggle how it's shown. Right now, when it's just, the default is on click. I believe this can also change to hover. Oop. Maybe I'm wrong. Clearly wrong somewhere.
Oh yeah, now I'm tested on the actual API of the component.
I think I've just got the wrong place to define that. I know it can be changed to hover and to focus. I've just got the wrong place to do so. Oop, embarrassing for me.
That's okay. I'm here to, as some potential help as well, and I'm also actively looking through the documentation to see exactly where that is.
Yeah, it's in the docs somewhere. But here's what I know I can change. I can change where it appears in relation to the anchoring target. So right now I've got it appearing on the top, so it kind of overlays our view screen. If we didn't want that, we could swap that to bottom. And as you can see, now appears beneath. Is this open source? Can I pick up some beginner's issues to learn? No, actually, this is not an open source library. This is I think of what the opposite would. This is a
commercial. Yeah, I guess that's the
commercial is the adult word. Paid for. But with that, it comes with all the benefits of getting a product that has a dedicated team and that has full support. You can still play with it. In fact, you can try KendoReact out for 30 days completely free. And during that time, you still have access to all of our docs and all of our support and everything that would come with a paid KendoReact plan. So if you're interested in checking that out, I will drop a link in the chat.
And the nice thing too is that it's all available on NPM, so it's not like you need to learn additional tooling or anything like that to get started. So it is, very similar to other projects that you might be working with already.
Yeah, and we've got some great stuff in there to kind of walk you through setting up your project, getting your styles, getting your components in, activating your license, getting your trial license if you need. And then we've got also a bunch of good example projects. If I can remember, are those in the knowledge base?
There actually is a sample applications just a little bit up.
Oh, yeah, it's just that I can't read. It'd be cool if I could read.
It's okay. I've been fooling people for years now. I just recognize patterns.
But yeah, if you wanted to look through some kind of examples and get your feet under you, take on some kind of beginner's projects, this would probably be the place where I would point you to take a look at the sample applications that we've set up and go in and kind of fiddle with those and play with the components, swap components out, customize components, see how you like them. And as the hopefully points out, the LKARS menu system, the actual demo app that we're looking at here, is available for you to fork and play with. Here on my GitHub, I'm sharing the stuff on the screen because we can't post the comments to YouTube in the same way that we can to Twitch. So for those of you seeing it twice, my apologies. But yeah, you can head over to my GitHub, Kathryn Grayson Nanz /Kendo demo, and feel free to totally play around with it. It's highly recommended. And in fact, if you find anything that I haven't done well, which is really a when, not an if kind of question, let me know. I'd love to spruce it up. But that project gets updated with every release to feature our new components and to take a look at everything new and exciting in KendoReact. So, speaking of new and exciting in KendoReact, I'm leaning into the really cheesy transitions now. We've also added a new section to LKARS user settings page to show off our new barcode and QR components. So I've created a little identification card for Kathryn Janeway, so chosen because of course we share a first name. So I've got our QR code up here, our barcode here. Perhaps if she needed to enter any high security areas, as we mentioned, there might be a need for some extra security in and around these starships. Seems like a lot of people are able to just kind of go places they maybe shouldn't be and get into things that they maybe shouldn't do. So
yeah, doors just open up when you walk by them. Yeah.
Instead, I'm going to suggest that to get to the warp core, you should have to scan something, like getting on a plane, you know? a little extra security. But to do so, I've used our card component, which is holding everything together here, and then our brand new components, the QR code and the barcode. So in this release, we've got this new barcode component. Swap back over. It comes with built-in support for 19 different barcode types, and you can control whether that barcode is displayed as an SVG or a canvas element. We've also got the QR code, which will allow you to quickly generate QR codes within your application. You can do that for URLs, for map locations, for email addresses, anything scannable, honestly. You can also add custom overlays to the center of the QR code, which looks really, really sharp. It's a great way to add a little bit of branding into your QR code and make it stand out. And just like the barcode, you can choose whether to display it as an SVG or a canvas element. So jumping back over here, we can see both of those are part of the barcodes library. It's a quick and easy import. Probably honestly should have put those on one line.
How dare you have it on 2 lines?
Oh my God.
Report it to the React police.
Extra.
Oh, sorry. You cut off right there. Yeah.
Yeah. I like you paused and I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure that's a me problem. But
you never know. Yeah.
But yeah, an extra unnecessary line of code, just deeply embarrassing for me here in public. But the barcode, as you can see, I've implemented here, only did take 1 line of code. It was super easy. You specify your type here, your value, and tell it how to render. I've got a second one in here. We can comment this guy out and swap it for a barcode, which I've configured a little bit differently to show off some of the other options. So here's a slightly different type of barcode. This one is a postnet. Swapped out my value, specified a height, and I'm rendering this one as a canvas element. As you can see, still super easy, looking sharp, rendered immediately. Just wildly handy.
Yeah, my favorite part about this component is that from a developer perspective, you just really need to know what are the requirements in terms of the type of barcode and then what is the underlying value. As long as you know that, you can fulfill any requirement, and it gets generated, right, as we saw here, as you render the application. So it's not like you need to pre-render all these ahead of time, save them as images, add them in, and figure out what to do. You can even dynamically change them depending on if you have an application where your customer might want to change, either the underlying value or the type, right? Since it's just a prop that you can access, you can have that be bound to some variable and then change it on the fly. So yeah, I am not familiar with all the different types of barcodes. To me, they're just lines, but I know what they do. So it makes it super easy to have these added into your application. And still sticking with some best practices for web development with having SVG and Canvas available instead of just raw images everywhere.
Yeah. Oh man, I can't tell you the number of times I've had to use a third-party service to generate a QR code, usually in my experience, and not a barcode, and then export that and hope that it's high enough quality that it's actually still scannable. And
oh yeah, as folks are zooming in, and we can especially see that with going to restaurants nowadays, right? They might have a QR code that you need to scan, and I've been to some places where it's the most pixelated QR code I've ever seen printed out on a piece of paper. So it's not always easy to do.
Nope, agreed. And then our QR code is here, just above. I've got a quick style set here. I've got the value, which is where you will go when you point your phone at it. Let's see. I will point my own phone at the screen. Let's see, and I got my QR code functional. Isn't this a great demo? And it's taking me, of course, to Kathryn Janeway's page on Memory Alpha.
Yeah.
So super easy, super quick. I am interested if you could give us a little bit of insight on the error correction, because that's something I was not as familiar with. My basic understanding is that it's how much liberty can you take, right? With the
so this is where I'm also bad at the
sorry to put you on the spot.
No, being like a hardcore QR code user or a generator, I guess. But yeah, from my understanding, since the QR code, it looks like it ran a bunch of pixels, right? It really just is how, I guess, precise that might be. It's my understanding that there can be extra pixels in there that could potentially muck up scans. So I think the error correction there is just to make sure that it's within a certain bounds of gotcha. What's allowed. I believe that's a very 50% sure about what I just said. But yeah, it is.
That's
it
a
is
solid
something.
percent.
I know. As of course, I should know what all of our components do, but from the barcode and the QR code perspective, these are just things that, as we did the research on these components originally, we found that they were very important for folks that were generating barcodes and QR codes to be able to control this and be able to either explicitly set it, not care about it at all, but for some folks, they needed to have very fine-tuned control. And this also goes into one of the things, I know you have an overlay potentially that you're about to show, but one of the types that we support is actually the Swiss QR code, which is related to financial documents and having a QR code that can be printed on an invoice or a form that's used. It's an official government thing, and it's used a little bit over the European Union in general. And for something like that, especially if money is involved or banks or governments are involved, you just need to make sure that it's up to a certain standard, and the error correction helps with that.
That's cool. I actually did not know that's what a Swiss QR code was. So
yeah, it has a cute little Swiss flag in the middle. But there's other aspects of it too. But that's part of how you can identify one.
Yeah, Phil says I'm always 50% right. It's good. Yeah.
You just got to sound 100% confident in your 50%.
60% of the time it works every time.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you duly noted, I've got a couple of things commented out here. First, it's color. You can set this QR code any color that you like, although, of course, for easy scanning, I would recommend something high contrast with your background. And then the overlay image that we discussed before. So I've got mine defined up here where I have once again, borrowed an image from elsewhere, and then just given it a width and a height, and it was that easy to just pop it right there in the center of my QR code, looking smart. So again, 20 million times better than generating it, saving it, especially hearing that something needs to be changed. Like, actually, what if we put a different logo in the center, and then just being able to change that, not have to go back, regenerate it, relink the image.
Yeah, we have this drop down with 10 different options, and we want the icon to change depending on which they select from the drop down. Just pre-generate 10 images, please.
Yeah, that's fine. No big deal.
Yeah,
this is okay. Moving down right underneath, we have the expansion panel, which is another new addition in our R1 2022 release. And this is nice. It's one of those really like fundamental UI components, I think, that it's nice to have in the KendoReact library, to not have to reach for that and do it yourself, and just be able to grab that from the same library where you're grabbing everything else. You've probably seen these before, folks, just there to organize your content into this kind of UI element with the title and the just like a subheader you can add over here, and expand to put any content in. As you can see, I've got another component embedded in here that we'll look at in more detail in just a second. But it's nice that it allows any type of content to kind of be nested within, as well as this super nice, really clean built-in animation, which is one of those things that doesn't look like a big deal, but as someone who has animated one of these by hand before, that is surprisingly hard. Setting height-based animations with a variable height is harder than it should be.
Yeah, I've actually never done that, but I can see how that can be difficult. Yeah.
Animations like to know exactly where they're going. So like you can make a really smooth animation really easily by saying like, oh, the height will be 500 pixels. Yeah, the computer's like, oh yes, of course, perfect, can do. When you're like, I don't know what the height is, it'll just be whatever's inside. It's like, I'm uncomfortable with this.
You start seeing sweat drops form on your computer. Yeah.
It's like, why would you do this to me? So the fact that you don't have to do that anymore, already a huge win. Yeah, again, like it's one of those things that doesn't seem like a big deal, but also like being able to see the content inside, and not like, when does that clip, or does that disappear first and then it closes? Like, I have animated these. As you can tell, there's pain in my voice right now. And it comes from experience, because these are just shockingly difficult. And if I never code one again in my life, I'll be happy. And I'm thrilled to see that I don't have to now.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually, for some folks that might have seen this, we do have what we call a panel bar. You also know it as an accordion, that kind of is, a bunch of these stacked together. We've had it for quite some time, but what is nice about the expansion panel is that it allows you to do just this one-off thing right here, right? If you just want one area to expand or collapse. I see a lot of folks also doing this with their FAQs, for example, like the question is listed in the header, you expand it to see the answer, and you can stack several of these on top of each other, and they will, expand and collapse according to, if they're in the middle, the appropriate amount of room is given. So they're fairly intelligent with that too. But if you need to have multiple on a page, it's nice. But oftentimes I just use one quick thing like this on a page, and it's very handy to have available.
Yeah, I think the reason I would probably reach for the accordion bar over this, or over multiple of these expansion panels, is when you need them to kind of know the state of the others. So like when one opens, another closes,
Yep. Yeah, or if you have like a nested, like a hierarchy, right, where you have some parent elements and some child elements. There's a lot within. And I think, oftentimes I see a accordion or panel bar used for navigation, for example. And that's something that the expansion panel would be a little bit tricky to be able to have that, navigation representation. It's possible, you just would have to do a little bit more code on your own. And why do that when you can just drop a component and define some items and you're off to the races?
Yes. I I am a huge fan of not reinventing the wheel. Like,
Yes.
that's one of those things
here.
that I think. Before I had this job, I worked at a couple different companies, and my job at both places was to create their own kind of custom component library, which is great and was super interesting because both of those companies were they had such specific purposes that they needed a number of custom components. But they also needed like buttons and expansion panels and normal stuff, And there was always this feeling where people would be like, well, should we get a button in our component library? Don't we need, whatever? And I'm like, there are so many great buttons that already exist. It would be really, it would not be the best use of our time to reinvent a button just so that we can put one in our component library. I would rather focus on kind of super specific data visualizations and like interactive stuff that these other companies needed, which again made total sense, than reinvent things that already existed and worked really well in other component libraries. So, all right, that's my soapbox.
I've seen sometimes the opposite too, where it's not the opposite, but you start with the button and an input. Those are fun, they're great, and then when you get to something more advanced, you're like, yes, this is painful. This is too much. So when you get down the road of those hyper specific components, it can oftentimes also be that is where the majority of your time is spent, and maybe it's not as fun as getting that perfect button with the flashy animation that when you hover over it, when you click it, it sparkles or whatever it might be, right?
The thing with that is that if you have a good existing component library with those base components, you can use those to ease the burden of creating a more complex one.
Yeah.
Like, that is also a totally valid way to go. Or if you really, really want that like beautiful button animation, I'm pretty sure you could add it to these. Like,
yeah, you don't have to start from scratch every single time. Yeah, it's tempting.
Right.
It's tempting. How many projects have we said, in the development careers, we're like, we're going to just start from scratch. It's going to be so much better this time. And, we learn from the mistakes of the first time we made the applications. 5 years down the road, the next team is working on it. And they're like, all right, this app is garbage. We need to recreate it. It's the endless cycle of just rewriting the same application over and over again.
Yeah. Today's promising greenfield project is 2 years from now's annoying legacy project.
Yes, exactly.
But as you might have seen when I expanded this, we got a little bit of a sneak peek at our last new component in the R1 2022 release, which is our color picker. This flat color picker opens a new way for your users to select colors. Previously, I believe we had offered a similar component to this, but it was within like a pop-up or a drop-down. So, which makes a little bit of sense because I think that's probably the first way that you think of these is when you're like, clicking in an input box and selecting color for something. But that's not necessarily always the case. There's lots of situations where you might just need to change a color and not need that first click. So this one is nice. Oh, go for it.
I was going to say this just comes from feedback actually from a lot of our customers to say, hey, I love that this is in a dropdown. However, we need to have it outside the dropdown for an application. It might be, I think we can think of the, some of the dev tools in our browsers as an example. Sometimes the color picker might pop up when you hover over a color that you set in. You might want to tweak it. Other times, as soon as you open a panel, the color picker is there already. So it can be something like that, right? Depending on what you're trying to offer to the end users of the application. So it's interesting how many different ways you can offer to pick colors. Definitely.
Yep. Well, it's always good to offer those kind of like the base components to folks so that they can do what they need to do. It's one of those, kind of basically what you said. I'm going to say it again because I'm annoying, but you never know what exactly the situation will be. And sometimes even as a developer, when you start working on an application, you'll find yourself in a situation where you're caught in your own assumptions of how something would be done. And then you're like, oh, well, I have to unbuild this or break this down further because I thought when I made this but it would always be used in this way. And guess what? I'm wrong. Like, so the ability for us to offer just kind of all the Lego blocks, honestly, and just say, here, whatever you need to do. Because ultimately, you guys, the developers, are going to be the folks that know the most about your users and your application and the end goals of your projects. And as much as we can do to make that process easier for you, the way I see it, that's always the goal. So.
Yeah, that's very well said. You improved upon what I said, so that was great. Yeah.
But this one's nice. I love these quick sliders in the bottom, especially to control the opacity here. Gives you a quick way to kind of jump around, or offering something a little bit more straightforward with this guy. So you can see over here on the side, it's updating with the next color that I choose. Or you can clear everything out and start fresh. Cancel does the same thing. But yeah, just a really nice, really handy, well-designed component. And another one that I would not want to do myself from scratch. I feel like that's the feeling I have as I'm implementing most of these, is like, ooh, yeah, I would not want to do this. That doesn't look fun.
Yeah. Sometimes I look at this and I say, yeah, how would I make that gradient? Just, that you can select that surface. Sometimes just that would stump me, I think. But it's, I don't code every single day. So, of course, I'm sure there's a lot of people in the chat like, oh, that's easy. You just do blah.
I mean, yeah, but was it as easy as this, which is all that it took to get this to show up in my application? But yeah, no, which also brings me to another point, which is shout out to the KendoReact dev team. Like,
yeah,
this is awesome. They have given us an incredible amount of updates and new components in this release. They are constantly working. I am constantly getting the GitHub alerts and emails, so I know just how hard they are working. And I think it's really visible in this release. Like, these are really well done. These are really, really great components, and I think folks are going to love them. So
yeah,
2 seconds.
I'll do away from the microphone applause. Yeah, little golf claps.
To the dev team who builds the components that I don't want to build. Cheers. So, those are all of our new components for this release. We do have a couple updates, actually more than a couple updates, 18 altogether to existing components across all of KendoReact. I don't have time today to dive into all of them, but we will talk about each and every one during our webinar next week. So if you want to catch the full rundown of literally everything that was included in the release, you'll want to sign up for next week's webinar, which will also give you the insight into what happened in other sections of Kendo UI. So the Kendo Angular updates, the Telerik updates. There's more than I'm forgetting.
Yeah. We'll be talking about jQuery, Angular, like you said, React, of course, and also Vue. So, a really good representation of modern JavaScript development. And that's right. I said modern with jQuery. I still think that there's so many times when I look at something, I say, you know what? I would have just used jQuery for that.
Honestly, though, the chat agrees. jQuery hype.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. jQuery gets a rough rep now, but it's powerful. Shout out to jQuery.
Yeah, I know that some people take the argument of, well, WordPress includes it by default, and a lot of CMSs, not the headless ones, but the traditional ones include jQuery, and that's why we see it everywhere. But it runs the world. I know React, Angular, Vue, they're all Svelte, like all these libraries. Folks are building fantastic applications that probably wouldn't be possible with jQuery, but at the same time, they're standing on the shoulder of the one giant turtle holding up the world, right? And that's
right.
jQuery.
That's good. Is that a Discworld reference? I like it.
Yeah. Yes, in my very limited Discworld knowledge, because it's a series that I keep on saying, yes, when I have the time, I'm going to read all the books. And I say
I'm going to read 25 novels.
Yeah. It's same thing with Wheel of Time. Amazon made it a little bit easier with coming out with the show, but I just haven't read this series. I just never jumped into that. And I love high fantasy and like fantasy in general, so it really should be in my wheelhouse.
Your wheelhouse. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, I feel that one. I am currently working my way through the Wheel of Time books, and so that one hit a little bit close to home. I'm like halfway through the 4th book right now, and the knowledge that that's only a quarter of the way through the entire series is...
Yeah, it's a little bit daunting. It was the same thing with Discworld when I was like, I'm going to get into this, and I saw a diagram that somebody posted online of here's the books you should read, and it's not just read 1 through X. It really is okay. Read up to here, then go here and read this like trilogy, then go back like under here, and then here's a supplemental thing that you can read. And I really sometimes it scares me, but it's on my list of if I ever retire, I think that's when Discworld is going to come into play.
I have read chunks of it, kind of similarly, where I'll like follow one thread all the way through. So I have not read all of them, but I've read all of the like the Going Postal ones with what's his face? Can't remember. But yeah, they were fun. That's one of those I also always mean to come back, and then it's like, and now I'm in Wheel of Time. So I guess I'll circle back to Discworld in another 5 years.
I know. I was a big David Eddings fan growing up, and he has a lot of like 5 book series, like books, and there's like 1 5, then another 5, then like a 3, like a trilogy, then like another trilogy, all in the same universe, just set at different times. And I want to go back to that. And part of me is like, no, you could read the Wheel of Time. It's the same amount of books, and it'd be a new story for you. But I think about the nostalgia, and it's the same thing with my video game backlog. I'm like, I could potentially take off, check off a game off the list, or I could replay a game that I really enjoyed when I was a kid, and so I bust out the old Super Nintendo instead of really taking a step into the backlog.
I feel that in my heart as well. There's so many times that I'm like, I could play that, or I could play Final Fantasy IX again.
It's great. I know that I like it. So I see the chat is blowing up around Wheel of Time and Discworld. So I feel like we're among good people here that either are in the same boat or have started the journey or are looking forward to what we might be able to enjoy in the future whenever we get to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of Wheel of Time excitement. So many Discworld books. Yes. And they're so good. Like Pratchett is just a gift. My favorite series, I assume, Melissa, you're talking about Wheel of Time, but doing Discworld also a strong option. But I envy the journey ahead of you. I do that. Yeah, that's the feeling when someone else starts something that is so great. You're like, oh, I wish I could just erase all my memories and do it again for the first time.
That's my very recently my friend started playing The Witcher 3, which to me that's the pinnacle of video games. We can pack it in, we're never going to be better than that game, and it sucks that a lot of people are trying to build games and we know that it can't be we can't overachieve that. And I'm just so jealous that he gets to play through this game for the first time. And he keeps on messaging me, and I'm like, I remember that moment years ago.
Oh, man. Yeah. And Ivana, who never really read the Discworld books, but made her own additions to them.
Ooh.
With Magic Mark. Yeah. Or the fear that somebody starts something that you loved and then they don't like it. You have to end the friendship. It's always a risk.
It is a risk. I personally try to say, well, okay, maybe I'm a little bit too fanatical. Like I did just say that, we can pack it in. There are no more video games that need to be created. And I still play them.
That was a hot take.
It is a hot take. It is a hot take. I'm not going to die in that hill. It's just more of a joke of how much I love the game. It's just absolutely flawless to me, and it's tougher to find a flawless game, if you ask me.
That's fair. But once again, this does actually make me want to just have a stream with you where we talk sci-fi and fantasy, because we could clearly do it.
Yeah,
for
clearly. Yeah,
hours at a time.
Join us in an all-day stream.
Honestly, judging from the chat, I think they'd like it too.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about just a few more things.
Yeah,
from
sorry,
the release.
tangents upon tangents.
But no, everyone agrees. Please do it. I'd be there.
Yes.
I'm
all right.
Genuinely wanting to do this.
Yeah,
we'll just have like a hangout.
Let's add it to the backlog and figure out when we can find the slot for that. I'm in.
Definitely. But there were a couple of the updates to our existing components that I wanted to highlight real quick. First is the pivot grid, which is super nice. When the pivot grid was released, which was actually, I believe, in our last release, our R3 2021, added the pivot grid, which was super impressive. I believe actually I've got one over here in the engineering console. I have not updated mine yet to reflect this new update. This one is still bound through an OLAP cube, which is difficult. If you're not someone who works with those all the time, then they're a little overwhelming, which is why this is the one part of my application that is not Star Trek themed. It's just the data that was already in the OLAP cube. But I could now and will go back and fix this, because we no longer need to data mine exclusively through the use of an OLAP cube with the pivot grid. You no longer need that server-side implementation to serve your data. You, the developer, can now choose the best approach for data binding in your application and with your pivot grid, which is super, super nice. So that, I think, is just going to be a huge quality of life improvement to our folks using the pivot grid.
Yeah,
or folks
pivoting is tricky. And
folks that might want to dip their toes into pivoting, but we're scared of an OLAP cube.
Yeah. I've talked about OLAP cubes for over 10 years now. I still don't know what one is. I just know that you shove it into a pivot grid and then you have pivoted data.
Yeah.
People have sent me Excel files with everything pivoted, and I say, yes, but could this not just be a data table? I'm sure there's obviously a reason for it, and I'm sure there's some good way to understand it. But being able to bind to local data, or just not having to set up an OLAP cube because it's so very specific. This makes it, even if it's a little bit more of an advanced data set than just rows and columns, it's nice to be able to have that offered.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to kind of skip that step and not have to do things in exactly that way, or be bound to the use of the cube.
Yeah, and this opens up the opportunity to have any kind of RESTful API or like GraphQL or something like that you're hooking your data into, right? As opposed to maybe having to set up a custom endpoint that's just an OLAP cube for the sake of having OLAP.
Yes, definitely a nice thing to be able to pivot away from. I'll see myself out.
Yeah, well, we're doing it. We're doing it. Puns on puns on puns.
The other component that got a really nice update, or maybe series of updates, I should say, is the editor component. So I don't actually have one in LKARS, although I probably should at this point.
Yeah, maybe a captain's log.
Yeah. Duh.
You'd have to figure out a way to like dictate it in during the presentation like this, right? But at least you can type it in and have the text in there. Yeah,
that's true. I'm sure occasionally that was something else. Again, minor tangent, that always drove me a little crazy, or continues to drive me a little bit crazy in Star Trek shows, is that everything is voice control, and that's just not practical. Like eventually, like you every now and again see them holding a data pad, which seems to be like an iPad style touchscreen, which presumably means they must also be able to type. And I understand from the perspective of a TV show, it makes sense for people to narrate things all the time, because it would be really boring to watch someone use a computer as someone who uses a computer all day. Like,
what are you talking about? It's a thrill here.
Right.
It's a constant entertainment of clicking.
Absolute nonstop joyride over here. So definitely understand, but also at the same time, like, that would be annoying to have to dictate everything. I mean,
Yeah.
I have an Alexa and I like her, but
Yeah, well, you have to say that, you know, for when the robot uprising happens.
yeah, she's right next to my desk, so I wanted her to know that I appreciate all her hard work.
Yes. Yeah. Same here. I won't say its name because it'll light up
Yeah.
my house and you'll hear it talk behind me, but I also appreciate my robot overlord that listens to me all the time.
I'm only highlighting this one, which again, I know I shouldn't be, but I love this game, Star Trek Elite Force.
I actually haven't played it.
It is vintage. I'm going to go ahead and say it, like a fine wine.
Yeah.
Because as you point out, it did come out in 2003. But you are playing someone on the Voyager away team, and you get to like fight the Borg and everything, and it is so good. It's so good. It also had a really great, like at the time, local multiplayer mode that me and my sister played just constantly, where you could be on the holodeck and run around with like phaser rifles and shoot at each other. Which,
oh wow,
what more could a young girl want?
Yeah, right. So, I'm adding this to the wish list right now.
I'm pretty sure you can buy a copy of Star Trek Voyager Elite Force for approximately $2. So
yeah, it'll be in the backlog shortly, not even on the wish list. Yeah.
Yeah. We had it for PlayStation 2 when I was a kid. But anyway, the editor, I swear.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm a little bit biased, but I think the editor was already one of our most impressive and powerful components, frankly, and it just got a lot better with this release. There were 5 major updates that got made to the editor. First is selection. So we have improved the way that selection is handled within the editor component, which is super great, especially if you need to like extract the content from out of it, like either automatically or on click. I believe. Where did my... This is all in our docs, obviously, but you have super precise control over selection in the editor now, which is great that this is exposed now and something that you can reach in and grab as a dev super easily.
Yeah, I found this demo really interesting because I've never thought of this aspect of wanting to do selection. Like you define the start and end, you know, range within the editor and programmatically select something for somebody. I'm always so used to extracting the selection that somebody has made. So you know, there definitely are scenarios that are popped up where this is what some of our users are looking for. So being able to just have a range slider like this control the actual selection in the editor and see that live is really cool.
Yeah, it's just one of those, like, I don't know that I personally have a use for this right now, but dang, it's fun to play with.
Yeah, right. Like, you slide that up and then you just see the selection being changed. Yeah.
This was cool. Another one that was highly requested and now exists is the ability for users to resize the editor itself. So as you can see, you've got these 2 little lines in the bottom. When you hover, you get the drag handles. And now, just like a text area, HTML element, you can resize it, which makes a ton of sense. I don't know if you've ever had to try and type into one of those like too small text boxes, but like, gosh, that's annoying. Mm-hmm. So that's one of those like small but really good quality of life kind of updates. Similarly, you can now quickly and easily resize images. So I'll make our Kendo colleague super tall. Look at him. Skinny legend.
Yeah, right?
But yeah, same kind of deal. Super user-friendly, works exactly the way your users will anticipate based on all of the other word editing programs that they are used to. You hover or you click, you get the box with the handles. That's what it says on the tin. So next up, the way we handle lists. Users can now work with alphabetical lists, and we have also improved the way that nested lists are handled. You can control what kind of list should be created when you're creating sub-items within lists. So feel free to get as detailed as you like. which I was laughing at. I put together an outline that I sent to Carl yesterday for this live stream because I have never been relaxed a day in my life. And it is like a 6-level nested outline. And I was like, oh, this would have been great for the editor.
Yeah, you can just, it goes deep as you like. And then, you can say, oh, is it 1, 2, 3, 4? Is it, ABC? Is it capital letters, lowercase letters? You get to control that.
That's nice. Finally, the last one is a little bit less show and tell, but still super worthwhile. Devs now have more customization ability with our editor because we have exposed a handful of events on mount, on execute, on paste, on focus, and on blur. So all of those are listed now in our API. And each one of our components has the API that tells you kind of what's exposed and what you can play with and what you can hook into. Because again, you guys are the ones that know what needs to happen. We're just here to help you make it happen. So the fact that you have this flexibility in terms of user actions that you can react to and hook in more naturally to your application, it's just going to make things easier. So one that I think is nice, even if it's not a like, look at how tall the Kendo Ka is. Like,
right.
You'll probably use it more.
Yeah, it's all a part of the editor story. Let's call it for this release. So we added a bunch of new features, and then this just happens to be something that was of course requested. If you're dealing with the editor, chances are that you need to take advantage of this. So snuck that in. Yep.
As Aztec so well put, events happen.
Events happen. Yeah. Yeah, I've never said it that way, but I'm going to use that.
The users, they just keep doing stuff.
Yeah. Events happen. Yeah.
Events happen.
Yeah, I might even start using that instead of the more adult version of the expression. Yeah. I think I'm just gonna start saying that now as the PG version. Events happen.
Yeah. Events have occurred.
Yeah.
Yeah, watch out, because now in our next meeting, you'll just get like a thing in the chat, just like hashtag events happened.
Yeah, right.
All right, I think we actually, believe it or not, managed to get through my entire agenda.
Oh, geez, even with all my distractions.
Like I was shutting that down. I was actively participating because if provoked, I will talk about Wheel of Time for hours. So yeah. We even managed to not talk about the Amazon show, and I've got enough opinions on that to fill a whole another live stream.
Oh, yeah, nice. Yeah, we're all right. So we're making it happen. I saw someone in the chat, said, "Oh no, the backlog," as if when I mentioned that it was not going to happen. I truly, we should add that into a short list of, when we can find the stream. And
I'm pretty sure I saw on my phone that I already have an email from Ivana about setting up a fantasy stream.
Nice. Yeah, so we'll make it happen. I am sure we can find some other great folks.
The team is already on it in the background. We will hang up and they will have already scheduled it, set a time, invited 5 guests.
Great. So. I might have to read some other classics now and do some Spark notes on some old books that I vaguely remember, but I need to familiarize myself with.
We should do a book club. That would be so fun. We can all agree to read a book and then get on stream like once a month and chat about it.
Yes.
It would be
a
blast.
Check out this brainstorming that's just happening as we're trying to. Yeah.
Was there anything else from this release that you wanted to highlight that I might have missed?
No, this takes to me takes care of a lot of things that we adjust for this release. Of course, there's under the hood, fixes that we've done, and a lot of bug fixing happened with this release. We're trying to make the components more robust, but these are the overarching things. And thank you, by the way, for walking through a little bit of the Figma kits and how they can translate into some of those new rendering options that we have, since I think that's very useful. More and more folks, I think, are going to be working with these kind of tools, or at least get these tools as a way of saying, hey, this is what we're looking for, since Figma is really eating the design world. So it's nice to be able to see what that workflow looks like.
Awesome. I'm glad that was helpful. But all right, folks, I think that pretty much handles our rundown of all the newest and shiniest stuff in the KendoReact release, as well as all of our favorite sci-fi television shows, video games, and movies. If you want more details, as well as less fantasy-based updates, you can sign up for our webinars, which are a little bit more focused, a little bit more targeted, and just a little bit more structured. So yeah, there's a little win-lose. We talk less about Wheel of Time, but you also do get to hear every single thing that went into every single one of the release updates, which is worthwhile for sure. You'll want to make sure you sign up for that. It will be Tuesday, February 1st, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. If you're interested in our Angular release, we will be doing a live stream right back here tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern, like same bat time, same bat channel. Alyssa will be on to talk about all of the stuff that is new and exciting in Angular. I'm sure it will be almost as cool as React.
It will be. I'll be wearing a red shirt instead of a blue shirt, and I'll be joining that stream as well. So, it'll be just as cool. Red and blue, they're cool colors.
Yeah. Oh, all the updates are really, really great. The only downside is that you have to write Angular to use them. So.
Oh, snap. Just a little flame war right at the end of the stream. Yeah.
I just want to get everyone real mad and then sign off.
Yeah.
No, I'm
just drop the mic.
Joking. I actually wrote Angular for like 2 years before this job. But I will say I was happy to switch back. But yeah, for the rest of our exciting release goodness, we have, somewhere I lost my link with the schedule for all of the live streams and webinars for everything across the whole Telerik family. I will find that and I will put it in the chat. There we go. And that will give you everything in the Telerik and Kendo release. Scope that out.
There's a lot of blog posts there.
There's a lot, but it's a really good rundown of everything in every release.
Yep.
And yeah, finally, one last shout out to our incredible KendoReact dev team. They worked super hard and put together a really great update. They're seriously the best. So if you're excited about any of this new stuff, let them know. If you try it out, you have any feedback, we'd love to hear that too. Don't be shy. Thank you guys all for joining. Thank you. I am glad you enjoyed it. The team keeps telling me that I need to show up for these in my Star Trek cosplay. I think I'm going to save that for Thankmas. I think there's going to need to be some kind of incentive, donation-based or otherwise, for charity. I can be talked into putting on my Star Trek dress uniform. Otherwise, you've got me in the KendoReact t-shirt. Thanks for watching. It has been genuinely super fun. I always enjoy these and enjoy hanging out with the chat and sharing everything that's new and exciting. So that being said, I will let you guys go. Have a great day. Thanks again.